Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Up and Running Pod. I am joined tonight with special guest Kyle Talman. How you doing, bud?
Good. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right. It's been a wild sports week. News coming down today about the president, which is crazy, but just absolutely a poop weekend, really. We'll start with some whip around coverage. Got a big show tonight. Get you ready for a couple golf tournaments coming up. We have an interesting topic to talk about. Uh, how do coaches deal with crunch time? Some positives, lots of negatives there. Lots of coach mistakes that have been going on. But
In
first
the
we're going to
world, in the
start.
world, in the world of sports,
Yeah,
let's just be
yeah,
honest. We're not just talking about like big three, big four sports. I mean, we've got everything from regular season blunders, playoff blunders, championship blunders. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I know that as much as you love coaching and coaching your kids in sports, and me coaching our kids in sports, like you know, there's times where we've been a little like, I wouldn't probably do it like that, coach. But just sometimes we have to speak our mind, and sometimes we just have to bite our tongue.
that's right. That's right. It's tough. It's one of those things that when you're coaching, you make mistakes, and then while you're watching other coaches that are coaching your children, you really don't understand decisions. And even just high school sports in the area, when you're going to them, you really fluctuate. Fluctuate's not the best word, but you really have questions about how they run their program and what they do. Just decision making. So we're going to get at that a little bit later in the show. But starting out, we're going to start on the whip around coverage. We're going to go right to NASCAR. As I said last week, my favorite thing during Memorial Day weekend is when somebody tries to run the Indy 500 Coke 600 double. This weekend, Kyle Larson was primed to do it, and I'm not a huge Kyle Larson fan, but was excited to see him try. You get to see these things. Obviously, rain affected everybody's weekend in one way or another, but the Indy 500 started late, started at 5 o'clock versus its normal 12 o'clock time. And, so that put him late getting to the Coke 600. Coke 600 starts at its normal time. Rain comes in, but right before the red flag for the rain, Kyle Larson makes the switch. Hendrick had everything planned out, SUVs and planes, ready for him to go. He gets there hour late, hour and a half late, gets in the suit, gets ready to get in the car. They make the switch, and the red flag comes out. Race ends, and Christopher Bell ends up winning the race. But as far as Memorial Day goes, Indy 500 and the Coke 600 are two of my favorite things to watch on Sunday. Um, and a
let
great,
me
great
let.
Indy. Go ahead.
I was gonna say my bad. I was gonna say let me ask. What did you think of the 600? Because I did get to see the highlights of the Indy 500, and got to be impressed. Forget the gentleman's name. I mean, going back to back. I mean, that's impressive in and of itself. But the way that good old Talladega Nights just slingshot around the dude going into turn three right there, and I mean, it was just there was no one going to catch him. But what'd you think of the 600?
Yeah, so the 600s, it's a long race, and it's a fun time because it's a lot that happens. It's it's one of those things that the Coke 600 is such a long race, so you don't see everything you really want to see in the first 200 laps.
Right.
And it ended 250. I think it was 249 was the red flag lap. But I definitely thought that there was going to be some good racing there at the end. See, this is where the big tracks get you in trouble. So, like at Talladega, Daytona, you have mindsets. Jeff Gordon was a famous mindset. He would wait in the back of the pack for the big crash and then move himself forward. Well,
Right.
if you were doing that this year, it didn't work out for you because it didn't. Red flag caused everything to go to crap for you. But at the end of the day, thought it was a good race. The atmosphere is always fun there. Would love to go one day. It's probably one of my favorite races. Not necessarily for the stamina part. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's Sunday night. You get the day off of work Monday. Um, good times.
Nothing's better knowing that you have an extra day off of work, and it's just like, oh, let me have that extra drink. I can stay up a
That's
little
right.
late. It's just one of those things, and like you say, especially just, you know, obviously what the weekend is all about is, remembering, our, current and former, military right there and everything they do for us. Thank you, service. I try to teach my kids, like I know you teach your kids, always thank a service, man or woman right there. But yeah, just, I mean, great weather, great environment. Heck, how many races have we all been to? And
Yeah.
I still reminisce the first time I took my wife to one. She's like, "Wait a second, we start drinking at 7 in the morning. The race doesn't start, and this is the Richmond race, doesn't start till 7 at night, and then you turn around and you can bring a cooler in there." She's
That's
like, "How
right.
are we going to get home?" I'm like, "Look, these million cones that they have set up, as long as you're not driving through the middle of them, like luckily where we live, it wasn't too far from the track. It was like." Don't hang out of the car and don't wreck all the cones. That's pretty much, I used to joke. I said there was always 2 days in the Richmond area you could get away with a DUI: the fall and spring Richmond race, and then Strawberry Hill. I said, other
Yeah.
than that, they were on lockdown. But
No,
again, just fun times.
the cones there are just bumpers, just like bowling. You just keep it between them, and you're doing just fine.
Exactly, exactly.
Um,
But
Joseph
and then what'd you
Newgarden.
think of
So
it? Go ahead.
Joseph Newgarden, it was the winner and back-to-back years there for the Indy 500.
Okay, yeah, appreciate it. But
So
yeah, I mean, obviously remarkable, feat just in and of itself. What was either, I think, Elio was the last one to go back to
yep,
back, wasn't he?
yep, back in the mid early 2000s, I believe.
Yeah.
But the way he did it too, to get past and then to come back and pass him again, just absolutely phenomenal. You really can't understand until you see how fast these cars are in person, how fast they're going, and what it takes. I mean, look, it's a rocket ship inside of there. It's like playing a video game. But just imagine these guys are running 200 plus miles an hour, and what the guys back in the 70s and 80s were doing with none of this technology. Um,
Yeah.
that's the
Not to
exciting.
mention what he's sitting not even a foot above the ground.
Yep, yep. And you have a little bit of metal over top of your head, maybe in a helmet. That's what you got.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, nothing above. Like
No.
my hair or lack thereof, nothing up there anymore. And you're just like, wow, this thing can go sideways fast. But like you said, it's amazing. Obviously, um, just the history, the almost like you and Mike talking about like the pageantry of the big horse races right there. I mean, that. I mean, everyone kind of associates, at least I do, with Memorial Day, Indy, and the winner getting the milk right there. But
Oh yeah,
nonetheless,
yeah.
like you
So the
said,
Braves.
that's right. I mean, and I thought it was really really cool. Does NASCAR still go there?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
they'll run theirs. Believe it's in a few weeks. But yeah, so and that's a big thing. Like that's the thing that you see with the double. So you go do it in a NASCAR, then you go do it in IndyCar. And speaking of that, the crossover, Tony Stewart, who was a good IndyCar driver, did the double a few times. Will be closing Stewart Haas Racing at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Mike and I've
What are your
talked about.
thoughts?
Yeah, so Mike and I've talked about that on the show about money and how things are expensive, tickets and stuff like that. NASCAR is one of the few things that outside of the big four that really translates, I think, to another topic we're going to bring up here in a minute. But NHL and MLB are going to have problems. The National Hockey League, their players, if the owner doesn't make enough money during the year, they have to pay back some of their money. But NASCAR, it costs so much to build the car. um, and Stuart Haas had a great. I mean, they've won two championships, I believe. So they've had a great tenure there. You can't stretch yourself too far, and then to be able to compete, they went through a manufacturer change, and really, it's coming down to like I've talked about a couple weeks ago is you have Hendrick, you have Gibbs, and you have Ford, and those three are going to control the majority. I mean, Joe Gibbs controls all of Toyota. If you run with Toyota, you use his models, his engines, everything. Hendrick is the best Chevy team out there right now, and I hate saying that because Busch runs for RCR, but NASCAR is running out of money. The owners are probably making money. Everybody says they don't have money, but they're used to living a certain lifestyle. And if you go back to the 80s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, even the early 2000s, these owners, I mean, sold out racetracks, making money, rolling money over hand and fist. NBC comes in with $2 billion and to get some TV coverage. Fox pays their fair share of a couple $1 billion too. But the money's running out for the smaller teams because the bigger teams take such a chunk. They have the better equipment. They can afford to do this thing. You got to think Stuart Haas runs NASCAR, or Roger Penske runs NASCAR, IndyCar, and other modified. Like their program is so big it stretches across multiple things. I just think it's terrible. I mean, Kyle Busch closed his up last year and sold the rights to Spire Motorsports, and so it's not good, and it's something that you think about, you have your Rangers shirt on there, the NHL. I mean, in bad markets, you look at Arizona having to move to Utah. But we want to open another team, but we can't even get the 30 teams right. We need to get them financially stable to prevent the bad things from happening.
It's really funny you mentioned that we're on, obviously, the NASCAR topic. Buddy Josh, Marshall alum, just like Mills and Big Dog Austin and I, lives in Charlotte. And we always go visit. It's not too far from us. It's about like 4 hours. I finally got to, we took his daughter's dance studio is literally within sight of the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Turkey. I was flabbergasted. I could not believe how many stands they have removed from this mega track. I mean, obviously going to Richmond, I mean, how many years, again, all the years that we used to go, especially, out of college, I mean, they'd fit 100,000. I mean, there's, seats around all four turns. And then furthermore, you'd have all the campers, you'd have, inside the track, outside the track. I mean, you'd have probably close to 500,000 people all within, a 10-mile radius of the racetrack right there. But to see now Richmond has basically the front stretch, a little bit of turn 4 and a little bit of turn 1 into 2. Like there's nothing on the backstretch. So to see this mega track have all their seats pulled out, I was just like, oh my goodness, like it just speaks volumes, even from a non-NASCAR person. Even my wife Erin was like, did they used to have seats right there? And I was like, yeah, that's why it just blows my mind. And again, it wasn't that long ago that, I mean, hell, people, you would not be able to get a ticket. It didn't matter if we're talking, a Martinsville, a Bristol, especially, the Richmonds, the Bristols, some of your original tracks. I mean, those were hot commodity tickets, and it didn't matter. I mean, I remember back in the day, just like your dad took, you and James Blake, we used to go to Truck Series, Bush Series, all those things. And it was such a great time because it was a great family event that you could take, whether you have 2 kids, 3 kids, or whatever. I mean, it was a great time for them to meet drivers, meet the owners, really kind of get involved in the sport. And even if you only, went 1 or 2 times, a year, depending on where you lived and how many times it came to your track right there. I mean, it was remarkable how popular the sport got. I mean, again, do you think Will Ferrell would have ever made Talladega Nights if NASCAR was not as popular as it was? I mean, what did they, I think at one point they called them NASCAR moms. Like they'd gone from the term, away from the term soccer moms to NASCAR moms. And so, I mean, it just really, it's crazy to think, 10, 15 years. Oh, look at this guy.
What's going on? Austin's joining us.
What's up, boys? How are you?
What's going on?
Hey, yeah, I was gonna say,
everybody toasting here.
Trust me.
But yeah, Kyle, you're exactly right. I mean, the thing is NASCAR's had Austin. We're talking some NASCAR here about how Tony Stewart's closing his shop up, Kyle Busch closed his shop up, and how the smaller shops aren't competing. But yeah, you're right. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, Kyle, it was hot, and really everybody wants to go back to this. When Dale Earnhardt passed away, kind of NASCAR went away. They didn't have that villain anymore, who kind of had NASCAR's a year to get them straight. So with that being said, let's talk some Major League Baseball. Got 2 Braves fans here. We are not excited about how this season is going. So, Austin, we'll start with you. We ton of injuries in Atlanta. Fully understand that. What can they do to get back to chasing the Phillies and not losing ground every night?
The biggest thing, and it is still important to remember, is we are still like 9-10 games over 500. So the season is not lost. And the biggest thing, really, I mean, the injuries hurt, but the bats just got to come alive a little bit. Riley's not hitting. Murphy's not hitting. Olson's really not hitting. It's just it's been a really down year for the offense, and I don't know if it's more that last year was so historically great that we set our standards too high, but that's the biggest thing. That the pitching has been, about what we expected. I don't know that we expected Chris Sale to be this great, so he really kind of has filled in for Strider appropriately, and the bullpen's done its thing. It's just the majority of the bats really haven't come alive yet.
Yeah, so the Chris Sale thing, you're welcome. The Red Sox sent him to y'all. Don't worry, you have 1 year, and then he'll pitch a fit about something. You're on the verge of losing a series to the Nationals, who have no offense at all. Kyle, what are your thoughts about what Austin said there? I mean, yeah, your bats are struggling and injuries, and
And it is interesting because I mean, Austin and I will text, and it's just like, oh my goodness, like what happened? And I think too, I mean, granted, we're 2 months in. The first month it was like, okay, obviously, we had Wild Thing Vaughn go down, second or third start, and it was like, oh goodness, that's not good. But bats are hot. We just, we were in really really good shape, and now it's like, okay, bats are cold, pitching is, again, like Austin said, kind of subpar-ish. But then again, that was kind of our expectations. I mean, think about it. I mean, what has what has changed about baseball over the last, I'd say, probably 5-10 years? The long ball. Everybody is launching it. It doesn't matter if you've got little Altuve at the bat or you got Elzuna. It doesn't matter how big, how small. These guys are jacking it out of the park. So knowing that we were very dependent on keeping hot bats from the top of the order all the way through the 9 hole, I mean, that really was kind of our bread and butter. So, again, plenty of baseball left. Again, just would, hey, I'm going to take the George Costanza. I'm going the opposite. So instead of us, blowing through the division, and then we get to October, and then we get like our little 1 week break, and then all of a sudden the team like the Phillies that are rolling in like red hot, go through whomever, and then all of a sudden we have our week off and we're super cold, and then we basically get swept, or in essence, like Austin and I have been immune to, win a game and think maybe there's a chance. And yeah, so we're just going to flip it this year. We're just going to do the opposite. So we'll try to get into, well, hopefully not a playing game, but at this point, I would take anything. Obviously Ronnie going down. Hey, I'm 14 weeks post surgery myself, Ronnie, on the left side. So I know the feeling. I know he obviously tore his right. What was that? 2001, or excuse me, 2021. And so he's obviously an integral part of the team and what he does, not only on the base path, but at the plate right there. So again, I think if again, a lot of ball left, a lot of time, but hey, if it's not our year, it's not our year. But it's still got we still got our fans, right?
that's right. So, what do you think, Austin? What do you think to make of this Phillies team that's just absolutely dominating Major League Baseball?
The Phillies were going to be good, and it was going to be a dogfight between us and the Phillies all year. I mean, if you looked at it, the Phillies got off to a god awful start last year, and from basically May 1st on, we were about a game and a half up on them for the regular season. So the Phillies can play. They re-signed Nola. That they brought in a couple bats off the bench to deepen their lineup. So Philly was going to be there the entire time. I thought would be better with our loaded lineup, adding Chris Sale, but last 2 years Phillies come in like Kyle said, hot at the end of the year and roll into the playoffs and gotten us. So I'd love for the opportunity to kind of reverse that course. And it's like you said, Cooney going down sucks, but in 21 he went down. And if we'd had this podcast at that point, we'd have been saying the exact same thing. The season's over. No, there's no hope. All hope is lost. And then we were popping champagne and doing shots of bourbon come October as we celebrate our World Series. So,
That's
like
right.
a lot of baseball to go. We've got a deep farm system. I trust Anthopoulos to, go out and make a couple moves here or there to lengthen the bench. And like I said, really, if the lineup just kind of, I mean, they don't even have to be as good as last year. If they just get back to what's typically on the back of the baseball cards, the race will tighten, and we'll be right there in the end.
Yeah, well, that's expected. Kyle, thoughts on the Phillies?
You got to hand it to them. I mean, obviously, just with what they have, like you said, Nola, the pitching. I mean, they are just they're as solid as they come. I mean, you couldn't ask for, I mean, even their fifth, it's not one of those where it's like, okay, it's day five, like Austin's taking the mound, like hey, let's, oh gosh, how are we going to win this one? I mean, they just there's something about the Phillies over the last few years that, as much as I hate everything Philly sports, and I don't care if we're talking, if Philly had a table tennis team, I would not like them. But it's one of those things that I do admire about the Phils, that they just have this camaraderie, this togetherness, that it's like, even look at Bryce Harper. I mean, obviously, being not too far from, DC, him starting his career with the Nationals, I think it was very him. But now that he's moved over to Philly, he has been a team guy. He is beloved by the city. Again, they just have that team chemistry, which is obviously something that I think, is interesting with baseball, because again, having that camaraderie, that togetherness, I really think that's kind of what helped Atlanta, when we won. I think that really kind of helped, having guys like Soler. It just seemed like didn't matter who who we picked up, who we lost. It was just kind of like, next man up kind of mentality. And so I think it just really kept everybody very positive. And so just knowing, I think Philly has got that mentality, it is obviously going to be hard to beat. But, nonetheless, baseball's one of those things. I mean, you can have, hell, look at my Rangers. Igor has already stolen some games. Austin Stars with Ottinger has already stolen a few games. So again, I mean, you can have pitching steal you a few. You can have the bats just come alive, and so again, a lot of respect for them. And hell, at this point, I wouldn't even care, as much as I hate Philly sports. At this point, I hope to beat the Dodgers. Anybody that wins, as long as they're not the Dodgers at this point, I'm fair with.
There's no chance on God's green earth. I'm gonna say
Let,
that.
let me ask you guys something though. As we're talking about, the camaraderie with the Phillies. The Phillies really were the first team that kind of zagged when everybody went to, let's load up on bullpens. Let's let starting pitching maybe throw 4 innings, and let's go to these openers, things like that. But the Phillies went deep. They went Nola, Suarez, Wheeler. They really loaded up on starting pitching. Do you think that plays a role? Because I know when the Braves, when we made our run, it's because we really did have deep starting pitching. So every day the starters going out there, the lineup knows, hey, we got a guy that's going to go out there and he's going to give us 6, 7 innings. He may not have his best stuff, but he's going to battle through it. Whereas, some of these new teams now, it's like, hey, this guy's going to give us an inning. You almost like you don't even get into the game until the fourth, fifth inning, that sort of thing. Do you think that plays a role in it? And you think that's, a sign of things that may be coming, is trying to go back to starting pitching?
So here's the issue with what Philly's doing, and I see it every day in travel ball. When we go to games, you go to high school ball. There's a kid at Atlee, a local high school here in Mechanicsville, called Yoder. Be on the lookout for him. He's got a full ride to Duke, but he won't take that ride. He's got another year left, maybe two. And just the other day, somebody was talking about, oh, he throws too many pitches. He's throwing all the time. He's going. Here's the thing: with what Philly did with starting pitching and having a stable of guys that can go deeper in games, that 100% is the way to do it. Nolan Ryan didn't have elbow problems until after 5,000 innings pitched. Okay, I get so sick of the argument that, oh, well, he's on a pitch count, but why? If you continuously throw, and y'all know this from golf, if or not necessarily golf, but maybe weightlifting or whatever. If you continuously do the same motion 50 times and stop, then your body thinks, okay, after 50, that's what I've got. You might get 5 or 6 more, but when it comes playoff time, you're going to have to throw more. The coach, if you're the number one, the coach isn't going to stop you. And so these kids because travel ball is crazy now, from 8U, 9U, 10U, 11U, on up to middle school, high school ball, furthermore into college or rookie ball if they're lucky enough to get drafted, they're all put on these pitch counts. And so most teams are seeing this and saying, okay, we've got to build the bullpen. But someone whose name comes to mind, in years past, not necessarily the last 2 years, but Max Scherzer, you used to always hear about him throwing a complete game. Like that is so not happening anymore. And you've got guys that threw complete games in the 70s and 80s and would come back on 3 days rest and throw another complete game. Some of them going 11 innings. So for me, 100% thinks that's the difference, because if you can get innings out of your starters, and then you're not having to piece together a bullpen for 5, maybe even 6 innings, you're able to do something at the end where the relief pitchers, not necessarily closers coming in for 3 outs, but you can work them and they're not tired. See, that's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter how much depth you have. If you're having to throw 5 relief pitchers a night because you're just horrible, that's going to wear and tear on them. You think about what the Braves did back in the early 90s through the mid 90s with Glavine, Smoltz, Maddox. Okay? Those guys weren't coming out in the 5th inning. They were pitching well on into the 7th and 8th inning at their outings, and then allowing the relief pitchers to come in and finish the game. And then Smoltz transitions to a relief pitcher closer there. So, Austin, I 100% agree with you. I don't know that they can do it much more. As athletes are obviously playing more, and pitchers are finding new ways to stay healthy, but the crop of what they're doing isn't going to be that large in the next, say, 5 to 10 years. It's going to be regulated innings. Pitch counts are going to be down to under 100 pitches for everybody. They're not letting the young pitchers grow, and I think it's insane what they're doing. In my personal opinion, they need to let them throw it, not necessarily until it hurts, but until you see the velocity come down. And once you see the velocity come down during a game or during a warm-up session, then you say, okay, he's tired. Because when you get tired, you make mistakes. So the long answer, obviously, is I think it's 100% the reason they're able to stay healthy. The pitchers are pitching, they're throwing, and then they can bring in the relief guys who are fresh and not overworked all the time.
All right, let me ask you three this question. And again, we hopefully are comparing apples to apples here, but just going back, obviously, spin rates, huge thing. I mean, you're talking about the mid 90s, early 90s, mid 90s Braves. I mean, to think of Greg Maddux is literally just painting corners at, 80 some miles an hour. Nowadays, what Mr. Olivia done, what did he throw, like 10 whatever? I mean, he's just,
Yeah.
I mean, the kid's arm is just ridiculous, and just with the amount of movement. My question to you two is, do you think now, with obviously trying to generate more speed, do you think it's almost like what we had in golf not too long ago, where everybody was chasing distance with, obviously Bryson just kind of doing his, engineering thing where he was very methodical in how he was going to swing. And then all of a sudden you had guys like Rory and others like chasing the speed, chasing the length. Do you feel like maybe that is also what is making these kids more vulnerable, is because you're putting more strain on your ligaments and things of that nature? Therefore, that's why I hate to say it, it's not a matter of when, but if these kids have Tommy John surgery.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think it's a combination of chasing spin rate, and it's college coaches, it's high school coaches, it's AAU, whatever the baseball equivalent is. It's saying, hey, you're pitching 2 innings this night. I need you to get 6 outs. I need you to throw as hard as you absolutely can, and I need you to snap that curveball off and just spin it. And you're only going to go 2 innings. So they gear up 100% and they throw everything they have behind it. It kind of goes back to what you were saying, Terry. If they're saying, hey, I need you to get me 6 innings today, then, Justin Verlander, he doesn't throw 9. He throws faster in the 7th inning than he does in the 1st inning, because he knows he's got to go 7 innings. So it's pure. To me, it's 100% a coaching decision and a new, analytic that to launch angle. It's the launch angle for pitchers is, hey, throw as hard as you can, and we'll figure out from there. But you're only going to get me 3 outs and then you're out. So just throw it as hard as you can, and we'll figure it out tomorrow after that.
Yeah, so I fully agree with both y'all there. The question and the response there, Austin. My big thing is, like, you take a guy like Verlander, you take a guy like Scherzer. The first time through the lineup, they might get a couple hits. I mean, Verlander's famous for giving up a home run in the first 2 innings there. But for me, the way I look at it as, baseball has done this with the pitch clock and some of the pickoffs moves. There's no gamesmanship anymore with pitching. and not necessarily that has nothing to do with the spin rates, but the guys get up there, they get the ball, they're ready to throw versus being methodical about what they're doing in that time frame that they have. And if you get stuck on the mound and you need a second, you don't have that extra pickoff move that you used to have. Um, and so I think guys just getting the Austin's point about the high school coaches. Hey, I need you to throw 2 innings. I need you to throw as hard as you can. It's 100% correct. Um, they care about the arms. I will say that most high school coaches I talk to do care about the arms and what happens. A lot of them are scared to say this because mamas and daddies are involved so much. But there's a difference, and we've all heard this in sports, from being injured and being hurt. Just because your arm is sore, right here, doesn't mean you need to sit out for 10 weeks and heal it. If you start having elbow pain where there's ligaments and it's not muscle, that's one thing. But just because your muscle hurts doesn't mean you need to sit. And I think mamas and daddies are getting involved. And to be quite honest, you're exactly right, Kyle, about the Tommy John surgery. It's going to happen. A lot of these guys are going to have it, but that comes from overuse the wrong way, which is what Austin alluded to there with the pitching 2 innings and throwing too hard. So, I mean, at some point, it's going to change again. I mean, the long ball went away. The long ball's back. Baseball is going to do what they need to do. They really need to look in. It's like concussions in the NFL and CTE. How do we stop the Tommy John? Or is the Tommy John just what we're doing? If it's that at that point, and I had a son who was going to play in the pros, I'd say, let's not even worry about going to Tommy John. Let's just go ahead and get it, and we're just going to put whatever the most durable piece we can in there to fix it right now. Because instead of you being out a year, I'd rather you be at a pitch at the end of the season. I mean, it's absolutely crazy to think that we are in 2024 and you had guys back in the, like I said, 70s, 80s, and 90s throwing all these innings, throwing all day, 3 days rest, 4 days rest at most, and yet now we're talking about guys having Tommy John at 19, 20. There's a 16-year-old that had Tommy John down the road. This is absolutely insane, and is definitely, if Mike was here, this would be his do better segment. Stop babying the children and then forcing them to go out for 20 pitches and just burn their arm up as hard as they can. Stop doing that. You got to do better. You got to take care of them 100% of the time, not just when you need them and think they need to throw low pitches. So that's where I am on that.
No, it's funny you mentioned that, buddy, because I've got a friend of mine. His son is pretty stout. He actually local school here in town. He is oh gosh, was it Miller School where Billy Wagner, famous Stro lefty and Brave. That's where his kids go, and that's where he coaches. My buddy's son, actually, it's a private high school, got recruited by Billy to come over there. Nice. And the one thing that my friend's son does is he not only plays the infield, but he pitches. And the one thing kudos to my buddy, when they are in the weight room at least 5 days. And cool thing is he does it with his son. They lift together, they do everything together. Field balls, hit, pitch, etc. But the one thing my buddy will do, even though they play year-round travel ball, just like yours, Turk, is when it is cold and they cannot long toss, he will put his own son on a pitch, and he's not even the coach. He will go to the coach and say, "Coach, he is not pitching but X amount of pitches because we haven't long tossed, or if they have started long tossing, they've only long tossed for 50, 75 feet. They haven't gotten to the 300-foot, level yet." So I really commend parents who actually are more education, based, knowing not only what their kids can do, but what they should do. And because trust me, once he gets long tossing and he's ready to go, he'll tell the coach, "Hey man, gloves are off, let him rip," And so I do commend parents and coaches who take the time to recognize you just can't let, little Johnny over there, tell him to pitch 2 innings as hard as he can and think that, Johnny's not going to have an arm issue, either after the game or, in weeks to come right there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. When we were kids growing up, there was no arm bands out there in the outfield, stretch it, none of that. Hey, Justin, you're in. 12 pitches. Let's go. And you got to go. And it is what it is. But definitely something that, Austin, you brought up the point about the Phillies. I think it's something that that's how you win. You've got to have starting pitching. It comes down to it. We talk about it in the playoffs every year. and Philly's doing it the right way. As much as I would hate to see them win, I really think they're going to be tough. They're going to come up against a tough opponent. I think the Yankees or the Orioles are going to make the World Series with them. That's the closest division in baseball right now. That AL East is dominated by two teams. Real quick before we move on, Austin, if you can, I'll ask you to stay on. We're going to get into some hockey next, but Orioles, Yankees. Give me your pick, Kyle, and then Austin follow up.
I tell you what, I know, if you could have told Mills back in January, hey, your boys would be on top, I think the answer we would all get is, I told you so, or, oh wow, we are. It would be one of the other right there. But no, you got to hand it to them. I mean, I don't even think they're firing on all cylinders offensively, which is probably scarier. The pitching is just gotten it done, and so not taking anything away from them. I think that right now, I mean, if we were if we were in September, hands down would pick them. But again, June is Saturday. I just think I think Baltimore is like a lot of teams. I think it's just we're only 2 months in. September's a long way away. I'm gonna go contrarian. I'm gonna say Orioles get it done. Again, not only do they have so much talent in their lineup currently, but even down the road in Norfolk, they are loaded. I mean, absolutely loaded. So. Kind of reminds me right now of like the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, you've got so many picks, but yet your current team is loaded. I mean, they've got so many options. The GM can go 100 different directions to make them better. So, again, I think they're kind of where they need to be. They'll find their stride. Hopefully, like our Bravos. So I'll pick the Orioles.
Austin?
Yeah, I think it comes down to what we had just been talking about, and whether or not Garrett Cole gets back healthy. He's throwing a bullpen.
I need him. I need him on my fantasy team ASAP.
If we'd had this conversation 2 months ago, I didn't think there was any chance he could pitch again this year. Just the elbow thing. So I'm part of me thinks that he's going to go out there, he's going to throw a game, and the elbow's going to pop, and he's going to be done. I'm hoping he doesn't because I like to watch him pitch. But I just if he does come back healthy, I think that's the jolt in the arm that the Yankees need. Otherwise, I think the Orioles get it done too. I think they're deeper. They have a better lineup. They've got the prospects to go. I think they do need to add an arm. They're one more starter behind Corbin Burns from being really dangerous. So I think Baltimore ultimately gets it done, though. I think the Yankees are playing a little bit above their head. So I think Baltimore ends up the 1 seed out in the AL.
And real fast too, Austin. Let's be honest. Our boy Kimbrel probably needs to hang it up. I mean, he
looks
I mean, I forget if it was a few weekends ago. It was almost like manager, just close your eyes and pick someone in the stands. I mean, this is just.
That's the Kimbrel experience though. Now in his last last 5 outings, he's gotten 5 saves without giving up a hit or a base runner. So I mean, that's been the Kimbrel experience since 08 when he didn't get the game against the Dodgers for us. So I mean,
yeah,
they definitely could use another arm out there in the pen, but Kimbrel did his job for the Phillies last year. He's one of those guys that he seems to get 3 outs. It's gonna cause you to drink and pull your hair out, but he does more times than not get 3 outs.
He does.
Yeah,
he's been awesome for years.
Well, and it's funny. I recently showed my kids Rookie of the Year with Henry Rowan-Gardner, and that's what it looks like. It's just like, oh, he hits a guy, he walks, gives up a homer and still gets a save. It's like that's Kimbrel's trying to check every box in the box score right there. You're just like, again, what do I always joke with you guys? If you're, whether you're a fan of a team or you're betting on baseball, I mean, it's a bottle of whiskey and a revolver. I mean, that's what you're going to need for this sport. Because I mean, It's 162 long, grueling, not only for the players, but obviously for the fans. And that's it's been a good 2 months there so far.
Yeah, y'all are back, but again, I think y'all will come back. I think the Orioles Yankees is going to be a good fight to the finish there. 162 will matter. Mike, just so you heard it here, all three of us are taking the Orioles over Yankees. I'll play. But guys, so right now, I know Mr. Talman is definitely interested in the game that's going on, but I want to start with you, Austin. Oh, big dog. Your Dallas Stars gave up Game 4 the other night. How are you feeling about the series at hand?
About the same as I did when the series started. There's cautious optimism, but you never want to be in a series where you don't have the two best players. And McDavid and Draisaitl are the two best players in this series. Don't let Mike come on here and talk, his nonsense about Connor McDavid. I can't hear him. I can't hear him downplay his ability anymore. It's just like I can't do it. He is that great. But at the same time, we've got the best goalie in the series. If not in the playoffs, it's me and you, Talman, could have a little conversation there. But it's one of those two. So if we get good Otter, we're gonna win. If we get okay Otter, we're gonna lose. So it really kind of comes down to that. That one hurt, but by that same token, getting a split in Edmonton the way they started Game 3, I didn't think there was any chance of that one either. So each team kind of jumped out on the one and then gave it up. So going back to Dallas 2-2 home ice with the better goalie, cautious optimism.
Yeah, I fully agree. Connor McDavid, I mean, he's unreal, right? And their whole scoring, I mean, their offense is just absolutely crazy. I said last week or the week before, I really don't understand why y'all played such great defense against Colorado and have not just destroyed Connor McDavid into the boards and killed him yet. But at the same time, 2-2. I couldn't be happier that both series are at 2-2 because I don't have a dog in the fight anymore, so we get to watch it. Speaking of which, the Rangers are tied right now 0-0 at the end of one. Maybe the second period has started by now. But let's go to Kyle. Let's talk about the Rangers real quick. What are your thoughts on what they need to win this game and then hopefully win the series?
Honestly, a lot like Austin. I mean, I think it's really just, let's be honest. I love the Rangers. Don't get me wrong. But again, 5-on-5 has been their Achilles heel, not just this year. It has been for a handful of years. And this will be, the third coach. So, again, I really think it just comes down to the players and the mindset. We had that mindset of we're going to block shots. We're going to let Igor stand on his head. This is very reminiscent of like the early 2000 Rangers where Henrik Lundqvist would literally just steal games left and right, and we had very little offense. Whereas this season, I feel like we have more offense, but we're also not necessarily talking like, a huge step from, we're not going from 1A to 1B. We're talking like we're going from like C to B, so there's definitely more offense there. But to be honest, like I got the game on right here. It's just Keandre Miller just took a penalty. I was running the numbers earlier today. Florida's power play. Now, granted, in I think it was Game 3. I think they had a few fortunate bounces. I think one caught Barkov's hand, and then I think the other one went off of Truba's skate. But anyway, nonetheless, their power play is 5 of 15. Again, this is just not, I think when it comes to playoff hockey, you've just got to be clean. It doesn't have to be pretty, but it just has to be clean. Clean in what I mean, like stay out of the penalty box. When you chip it in, make sure you're chipping it in the right, for non-hockey people, when I say chip it in, skate across the red line so you don't ice the puck. But when you throw it back in the zone, make sure that you're just not playing it where the goalie can go get it, or all of a sudden you're rimming it around the boards and it's an easy exit for the defensive team right there just to come right out of the zone. But really, the Rangers just defensively, I mean, it kills me. Granted, I played defense on hockey. I've also played offense. It just absolutely kills me. Some of just awful mistakes, just so much puck watching. I mean, sometimes when you look when they give up goals, it's like, why do you have two or three guys chasing the puck right there? I mean, we're talking almost amateurish, and guys below the red line. I'm like, you don't need three guys battling, two guys on the boards right there to get the puck. Like, whether you're talking, if they're on the penalty kill, like, hey, guess what? That means you've only got, if you've got three guys below the line, that means there's only one guy back there and three of their guys. I will say the only saving grace is right there, shorthanded goal. I think we have scored more shorthanded goals than anybody else. Sorry.
That is awesome.
But nonetheless, and that right there literally was going to be my point. When Sergei Bobrovsky has more points than Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, I mean, I granted, if Chris Kreider is not Chris Kreider in Game 6 of Carolina, which I am still pissed that I had a ticket and I declined to go. Sorry, other friend Mike should have, just having a family, man. It's just I
did the right
but
thing.
I know. But then again, even though my 8-year-old was like, Dad, you really should have gone. I'm like, thanks, son. Thank you. But nonetheless, Chris Kreider, his number will be in the Raptors at MSG soon enough. If it wasn't for him, trust me, we did not want to go back to the Garden for Game 7 after being up 3-0. Mika obviously did well against the Caps, did well against Carolina. But again, it's playoff hockey. Everyone's finishing their check. So nonetheless, sorry, I didn't mean to make this so long-winded, but I really think the Rangers really just need to clean it up. And again, just fire pucks on net. I mean, I've told Austin this, I've told you this. Like, this is not European soccer. I don't need to see you pass it 10 times inside a 5-foot radius of the goal. I mean, please put it on net. I mean, Bobrovsky, I know is as much as he can stand on his head, he can also let in, just like Igor. I absolutely love Igor, but sometimes you're like, what the hell was that? But sometimes they just need that one to go in so they can, kind of re-engage right there. I mean, not to jump too far ahead, but like our girl Nelly Corda, how many wins has she won over the last month? She made a 10 today on a par 3. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where you're just kind of like, it just, no matter what you do, sometimes you just need to hit those reset buttons. So the fact that both of us, Austin and I, are in a best of 3 series right now, I mean, granted, I feel like we've been playing with house money, especially with our big name guys not doing anything. So if we can get a contribution, hence Chris Kreider just doing what he did, I really love our chances because, again, we have not played the best, and yet we're only, we're tied. But nonetheless, just clean it up defensively. And again, just shoot pucks on net. I'm not saying everything, again, has to be a high danger chance. But let Igor continue just to be a brick wall back there. But, try also not to, let Florida have power play after power play either. Try to save the 5-on-5. As much as I just complained about them not being good on 5-on-5, we don't give up too many goals on 5-on-5.
Yeah. So the next question is, if Dallas finishes and the Rangers finish, are y'all going to get together and go to the Stanley Cup game?
I'd like to try to win my $100 back. Not that I want to jump too far ahead of our segue, but I certainly, and it's still going to be bitter about your Miami Dolphins taking old hot dog arm instead of Mr. Herbert, and had to fork over a Benjamin to Mr. Bull right there. But nonetheless, I'm sure we will have some sort of friendly wager. God knows I could pay for a plane ticket and a ticket to go to the game a lot cheaper than I could go to MSG. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine. She went to game 2 against the Caps. $1,300. Her husband was in a board meeting and was like, "Why am I getting a call from the credit card company for some fraudulent?" And it was like, "No, honey, I'm just trying to get a Rangers ticket." And I was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "Thank goodness you are my buddy is a fairly big, prominent position at a company that we use every day called Amazon." So I tell him, I was like, "Matt, I don't want to hear you bitch. Like that would." That's just, that's one of those things. But yeah, nonetheless, it would be fun to try to get together. But, knowing too that, hell, American Airlines, man, those people might be super busy trying to, get ready for ice and potentially an NBA championship.
That's hot ticket down there in Dallas, ain't it, Austin?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. No, yeah, we'll have a Stanley Cup champion hoodie or some kind of apparel thing on the line here. So what, and no one, I don't know how it'll happen, but if we do get a Ranger Stars, somehow like Game 7 will go to overtime and like it'll be declared a draw and like both teams will lose.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to work, but me and Talman, neither of us have any sports fandom joy that ever comes from it. So it's going to, it's fun to talk about, but we're both losing Game 7 in overtime on home ice. So it's
1,000%. It'll be like the Super Bowl like blackout. The lights will go out, like. All of a sudden, Bettman will come on and just be like, "Well, we're not giving this to anybody. Like ratings suck, and we're not going to give it to anybody." Like, just feel like between us being fans of the Braves, Marshall University, it just we're just immune to this, and I hate the fact that I've got to bring my little man who I guarantee come tomorrow morning when he runs down the steps, he's going to be like, "Did we win?" And if I have to tell him no, he just like starts like, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, got to console a kid that's already 8 years old." I'm like, "Buddy, hey, again, this is your friend. This is your friend."
Well, Austin, it's been a pleasure having you on, but we've got one more topic that I know you love. Little PGA Tour action.
Let me touch back on the Dallas Edmonton series right now. Again, 2-2, just like us. It was kind of crazy. Edmonton jumped out ahead Game 3, and then all of a sudden they lost. Dallas, came roaring back. And then vice versa. Last night, Dallas is up 2, and then, 5 straight? One was obviously an empty netter. But what's really, really interesting, I just kind of wanted to throw this, especially, having our surprise guest right here. Edmonton, since Game 6 of the Vancouver series, you guys want to take a guess at what their power play is?
Oh, really? You think it's a 0?
Close. One for 16.
Oh,
1 for 16. At one
Wow.
at one
I guess that was the
point.
Vancouver. They're 0 for the Dallas series. I know that.
Yeah. So
Because-
yeah. I think it was.
The shorthanded goal last night was the first special teams point of the entire series because Dallas is 0 for the power play and Edmonton's 0 for the power play. So that was the first special
wow.
teams.
Yeah. So yeah. One for 16. So. At one point, again, they were 50%. Like, even Mills had commented, Austin, you had said cheat code. I mean, they were a cheat code. But it's crazy to think 1 for 16. And even the Rangers have really, really cooled down. They're 1 for 11 in this series. And not obviously including today's game, but 1 of 11 in this series. So special teams, Turkey, what did I tell you? Every series so far in the NHL playoffs, the team that's had the better power play in this series has moved on and advanced. But here's 2 little tidbits, and I don't know if you want to segue this into Talman's tips or not, but Dallas Stars in the last 28 games, so we've got regular season and playoffs, third periods are 24-4 to the under. So at least Austin,
Wow.
if you're tipping a few back, and I don't know if you're ahead or down for the day, but you might want to fire on that one, bud. You might want to fire on that one. Thoughts on that?
Oh, I mean, Ottinger, I think in the entire Colorado series, he gave up one goal in the third period, and it was in 7 games against Vegas, it was two, and including going, I think the first 5 games, he didn't give up any. So, yeah, that's, it all comes down to can Dallas survive that first period? Because for whatever reason they come out sluggish. And if we can get it tied going to the third, Ottinger finds another gear. So that does not surprise me at all. He has been a wall back there in the third period in overtime.
Yeah, for sure. And then other last little tidbit. There's since 1993, there's only been 6 goalies who have won the Conn Smythe, and for you non-hockey fans, that would be the equivalent of the playoff MVP. Only 6 since '93. I kind of found that to be a little interesting because I know right now, before last night, it was Ottinger at leading the odds, and then it's Shesterkin. So he had 2 goalies, which is kind of crazy considering that when you actually look at the top 3 in points in all the playoffs, you've got McDavid with 28. He's got 4 goals, 24 assists. Draisaitl, 26 points, 10 goals, 16 assists. And Bouchard, who's got 6 goals, 17 assists at 23. The next group down is Kachuk and forecheck, backcheck, Trocheck at 19. So, yeah, it's pretty remarkable that you've got 3 guys from Edmonton, leading all the points in the playoffs right now. But then again, Austin Stars get it done 2 more games, might be looking at that Conn Smythe. You might be looking at a 7th goalie right there.
Yeah, that's wild. That's a crazy stat right there. Um, Especially considering the fact that they are, they win. That's it. They stop goals. They don't have any firepower when it comes to scoring. It's kind of like the defense non quarterbacks winning the Super Bowl MVP these days. It just doesn't happen. So good take there, Kyle. Go with hockey. New York settled in at 1-0 right now. And tomorrow night is Dallas and Edmonton game 5, right?
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
All right.
Austin, do you have
Well,
much? Do we have faith in our teams? Realistic faith in our teams?
I'm above 50%. I'm not going to say how much above 50% I am, but I am positive. So for
Is
me,
is
that's
50,
a win.
is 50.1 actually high enough right there? Is because I mean let's be honest. I know we all know how you are thinking right here. Because trust me, I'm not much more above that myself. Even with this 1-0 lead, I'm just like, again, I know that it's we love our teams because they always, I mean, I don't want to say they're the San Diego Chargers because the Chargers, I mean, again, I know they're Los Angeles, but San Diego used to find new ways to lose games. Like just when you didn't think that it's the Dumb and Dumber line, and totally redeem yourself. It's like they literally just find new ways to just not only crush your soul, break your heart, but just like make you scratch your head and just say, did I really just witness that happening? Like, did that really all just transpire like right now? So, which actually will lead us into our later segment right there, Turk. But yeah,
yeah.
nonetheless, I wanted to throw that stuff at you, bud, because again, I found that to be really, really interesting, both with the unders as well as where that vicious power play has been right there.
Yeah. No, that's great. So to move on to the PGA Tour, you got terrible news Saturday morning about Grayson Murray passing away, taking his own life. Just horrible. Um, another dark day for the tour. If you go back to the PGA Championship with Scheffler, who's been cleared, all charges have been dropped, but a patron died that day as he was trying to cross the road. So just some sadness in the PGA Tour the last few weeks. Somebody nobody's ever heard of, Davis Riley, wins by 5. Roll Tide, former Alabama golfer, takes it down this past weekend. Second place, Scotty Scheffler gets his charges cleared. Uh, Memorial's coming up, signature event. How do y'all feel? Is Scheffler going to continue his dominance in these events, or do you think we have a new winner this week?
Lead it off, big dog.
Talman, I'll hit you with my own version of the Talman tip. Do you know how many wins Scotty Scheffler has after April in his career?
2.
Ooh. Yeah, I was gonna say I'll be like that on the Price is Right. I'll go 3.
0.
Oh wow!
Scotty's never won a
See, I was
tournament.
gonna say that. but I was like, let's not. Let's not.
So Scotty has never won a golf tournament after April, which is unbelievable
Wow.
considering he's won what 2 Player of the Years, but that's because
Yeah.
he racks it up leading up to the Masters. But he's never won a tournament after April. Now, I wouldn't continue to bet on that stat holding up. He's just too good. But that is something to think about. I mean, it's unfathomable, really, that he's never won. So he'll be there. I don't think his game sets up all that well for Muirfield. I don't think he's had a lot of success there. So if it's Scotty or the field, I'm taking the field for Muirfield.
Okay, Talman.
100%. Yeah, it's funny now that you mentioned that. Gosh, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago when John Rahm had that massive lead in 2020 right there at Muirfield, and then was disqualified. When he tested positive for COVID right there, it was almost like he's leading the tournament. Just let him play dead last. He's already playing last. Just let him play by himself. But yeah, exactly. But I mean, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. So actually, now that you mentioned that comment, Austin, it's like, yeah, there's always like, it was back in our day. It was always Tiger at Muirfield. Now it's really a mixed bag of folks. Our famous hat wearing Californian on the Ryder Cup. I know he's had some success out there, though. Oh wow. Jeez, that was filthy. Sorry. And we're now tied at 1. That was dirty. When you guys see that, that's going to be one of those unstoppable ones. But nonetheless, yeah, Cantlay has done well out there. I think X-Man has played well. So to Austin's point, I don't think that has been a strong suit for Scotty for whatever reason. It is funny. I know the 3 of us all love golf. It is kind of interesting how sometimes this courses just don't line up well for us, whether, Austin being a lefty, us being right, just for whatever reason, just funny how that works. So again, worst case, Scotty, still brings home a monster check, gets settled in to go to Pinehurst, the week after right there. So, yeah, I would definitely take the field as well.
Yeah, so, one of the things that I think you talk about the course. You talk about one of the big things that we talk about is and Mike brings up greatness. We talk about greatness, and the thing with Tiger is it was Tiger, but it didn't matter the course. Short course, long course, wide course, non-wide course, tight on the fairways. Tiger just went out there and played and won golf tournaments. I think one of the things that we learned, and we talked about this last pod, was everybody was complaining about the PGA Championship. The distance, guys hit it long, but the scoring isn't that big of a deal. For me, it's a stat like that, Austin, with Scheffler not winning after April. What's going on? Like that seems to be a problem. It's like before Mickelson won his first Masters, why couldn't he finish at the majors? It wasn't like Tiger won every single one. He just couldn't finish. He could not get over the hump until he won his first one, and now I believe he has 6. I really think this week, I don't think Scotty gets it done. I don't think he gets it done at the U.S. Open. But one thing that I will say that I've been thinking about a lot since the Bryson DeChambeau finishing second at the PGA Championship, if the Live Golf PGA Tour combines, I think tournaments, the Arnold Palmer, the Memorial, Tigers event, need to have the big boys at it. I don't care about the whole live crap. Like this should be a special exemption, almost like a major. You want money? Put the guys from live in it. It's the Memorial Tournament. When you think about what you watched growing up, you had the Arnold Palmer. Arnold Palmer was out there till he passed. You had the Memorial. Jack still goes out there if he's healthy, and obviously the Tiger event, he's going to be out there. The AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. You have events that at this point now, I think the argument's done. But I miss having I want to see DeChambeau out there and see what he can do. I know we've talked about who, if Scotty's going to be there or not, but what are your thoughts about the signature events, the ones that have the bigger purses? And I know that's because of Live, but do you think if they combine those events should allow? I mean, those events will be ones that the bigger players will play, and Live will stay away from scheduling dates on the um, higher payoff events.
I do. I think when they all combine, it'll be that way, and those events will get the billing, and they'll get the draws in there to have everybody. And kind of going back to the Scheffler point, I think that the thing is so Scotty's come up since they went to the new major every month scheduling, which back in the heyday for us with Tiger and everything. Tiger had a bunch of events, I don't want to call them throwaway events, but non-majors that he could go out and just like Rory's doing in Canada this week, where he can just go out, find his swing. Scotty did it in Fort Worth before the Masters, where these guys can go out and play not necessarily the super challenging courses, but one where you can be a little wild, find their game, work on some stuff. Now it's become, it's just major signature events, major. So when you've got those increased fields, it's really not that surprising that Scotty hasn't won, because all he's now playing in are the premier events with the biggest fields. So at the prestigious, toughest courses, where you're going to have the best competition, which I think is what we need to get with Liv coming back in there, which is why when that goes down, all those Liv guys will be at the Muirfields. They're going to be at the Arnold Palmers, because the way the scheduling works out is you really only are going to play in one, maybe two, if there's an event between majors that you really like. And then, especially when you go to between the U.S. Open and the British Open, they're not going to play anything stateside. They'll probably go to play in the Scottish Open right before the Open over there. So those tournaments, are going to get the bigger purses. So I think you'll 100% see everybody kind of go, and the Liv will go against, some of the they have a tournament this week against the Canadian. They'd have it against, whatever the John Deere or something like that, where there might be some breakdown that way. But in terms of the big events, just because the schedule's so condensed, they're not going to have time to really have other tournaments, because they're going to want to play in they want to play in Muirfield.
Yeah. The thing is the difference between what we watched before, when you had the separation, the PGA Championship was last, you had breaks in there, and what they do now. I almost think they'll have to go back to the way it was. I know the Olympics screws that up every 4 years, but you'll have to kind of go back, because you will want that separation. And the NFL does a good job with it of spreading out their money. Every month after the season, you have the draft, you have the combine, you've got something, you've got OTAs, you've got things that matter. And I think the PGA Tour needs to get back to that. Go ahead, Kyle.
Well,
Yeah, no, I
I would say
agree.
Turkey, you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the NFL. That's why we have this schedule, because you can't get big purses going against college football in the NFL. That's why it was a brilliant move to get the Tour Championship done before Labor Day, because that alone added to the purses, because the sponsors are going, hey, I'm going to get eyeballs, as opposed to the three of us watching it because there's a major college football game on. So yeah. I think that they have to keep it before the NFL starts.
Yeah, 100%, because I mean, it is really interesting with the NFL schedule, just recently coming out, and it's kind of funny. They're definitely sticking their chest out and flexing their muscle, really kind of on top of a lot of the kind of marquee college game or college weekends per se, especially come playoff time. So. Which, again, I know you Turkey and Mills have talked about, is the NFL getting too big? Granted, we know it's king in this country. I mean, again, there's really not a day that goes by. I mean, heck, Waddle just signed a big extension today. I mean, there's always news, and it's always going to be relevant to most sports fans in this country. But going back to your point too, Turk, with, do we have too many tournaments? I really feel like that's kind of where, and again, not to get into the whole Jay Monahan, fiasco, but I really feel like that's kind of where a lot of this is stemming from is Jay's trying to pull a lot of this money from these sponsors, and these sponsors are like, whoa, 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 like, they want to invest in these events, but at the same time, if you're all of a sudden, taking what, would typically be, let's just say a $10 million purse, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, you got to make it $20 million now? Like all of a sudden you've just cut into our margins, and let's be honest, it doesn't matter if you go to the grocery store, anywhere these days, everything is more and more expensive. So therefore, you are not going to continuously get all these sponsors to want to invest in your product. Therefore, what can you do? Well, if you've got something every week, I mean, clearly that is just, I don't want to say it's going to get watered down, but knowing that, again, Scotty's going to come, to an event leading into a major, then he's going to play the major, then he's going to sit for 3 or 4 weeks. Rory doing the same thing, all these big name guys. So all of a sudden, you're taxed at, putting $10 million, into a golf tournament, and you're not necessarily going to get the best of the best. Like, of course, no one's going to obviously just be like, yeah, continue to come out and we don't care about ratings. We don't care about I think they're going to need to be, they're going to need to be creative. And I think, a lot of that will hopefully, get cleared up when, again, these signature events do allow live. Therefore, again, we kind of get this, whether you want to call it, majors, minor league kind of system, or some way, because again, I do love, like, Myrtle Beach was there last weekend. Their event, first event in God knows how many years, was actually just not right down the road from my parents' place at the Dunes, and I think it was well received. And again, it was obviously going against the signature event, which was at Quail Hollow, but again, there are so many golfers. Hell, I think the kid, gosh, what did he get, like birdie or birdie eagle or something like that, and he qualified at 14 years old. And so, I mean, just knowing that there's so much depth in golf, and whether we're talking players just in this country, it is a universal sport. So therefore, I'm really hopeful that the tour. The commission, or not commissioner, but the commission, the panel, whatever they call themselves these days. I'm really hopeful that they can, kind of, get this together. Because again, I mean, we love golf. We've obviously all been to events. We love going to it, but again, they're going to need to go to the drawing board, and I would say they're going to need to do something sooner rather than later.
Well, I think the NFL gets it. I mean, the NFL does everything well, but there's a reason that the NFL put Patrick Mahomes, and I mean, they would have put him on Peacock in the playoffs anyway. But hey, we've got Patrick Mahomes and Taylor Swift. Hey, Peacock, you want to pay us $100 million? NFL realizes that it's a TV show. They went to, hey, Netflix, you got $200 million for Christmas? Okay, we'll give you Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, okay, I'll sign up for that. Amazon, who do you want? On your Thursday night games. If you look down it's everything is a major like the worst quarterback game, I think, is Tua Trevor Lawrence on Thursday, and that's 2 top 10 guys. I mean, it's every Amazon game. They put a star quarterback on there. The NFL goes, hey, all right, we're a TV show. Yes, it's a game, and yes, we're doing this, but we need to build eyeballs, and that's how the PGA Tour needs to do it. They need to, and that's what they're doing, and that's why you got to have these signature events. That's why you got to get live in there and say, hey, we need all the guys here, and that's how you can get an extra $10 million from a sponsor to pony up for a purse. But if hey, I'm only going to get, maybe Rory shows up at this one, and then next week it's all right. Yes, Scheffler and Spieth are the only 2 guys that anybody knows about. Why am I paying $20 million for this? If you want to get the money, you got to put the big guys, and you got to go to that player advisory board and say, hey guys, we need you to play these events, which is what the NFL did with the Players Association. It said, all right, yeah, you guys want, you want more revenue sharing? All right, we'll go get Amazon's money. We'll get Netflix money. We'll get Peacock's. But hey, we're putting Patrick Mahomes on there. We're putting our star quarterbacks on there. It's going to be awkward travel. It's going to be a little weird. But if you want more money, you guys need to be front and center in this, and that's what the PGA Tour has to do.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, you hit the nail on the head, is that the live guys have got to come over, got to get this deal done. Because for me, it's not. It's watered down at this point with these guys. Like you said, Spieth and Scheffler. They're the tournament, and it's a $20 million tournament. And that's all that shows up. Well, that's a problem. And you're going to have the McIlroys there, the Justin Thomas guys like that. but for a tournament that really is a knock around tournament this past weekend for Davis Riley to go out and win it to beat one of the best players, you still want to have that. So
Yep.
we're going to talk about this later in some other episodes, but one of the things is I wish they would go to like a European soccer type of format and have two tours for the PGA Tour. You can move up, you can move down, and then have events that include everybody. And then again, you're already doing that now with the signature events, right? You're already having limited fields. Why not make it a real system where if you're not here, you move down. The guys that are top of this one move up. But we're going to get into all that at another time. We've talked about the Memorial and the signature events. What are y'all's thoughts on the U.S. Open? Right now, my Bryson DeChambeau fandom has just absolutely elevated. One of the big things is you don't really know the guy. He's into the science, blah, blah, blah. He's into all this crap. But when he throws the golf ball to the young fan and an adult takes it and tries to run away, he goes and handles that the way you handle it. He tells the fan, hey, come back here, gives the ball to the young fan. Really, really spoke volumes about him. But just watching some of his YouTube stuff, really enjoy his take on golf and his funny side plus his serious side, understanding why he does what he does, what he thinks about the game. What are y'all's thoughts as far as who's going to win the U.S. Open and if a live guy is going to come through and win it this year? Go ahead, Kyle.
It's funny you're talking about Bryson. I mean, again, it was not that long ago that it was just I kind of like him and Brooks just button heads. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you could tell he was a very socially awkward guy. But you know what? Like, I've kind of really grown, like you said. I don't know if it's the YouTube stuff. I don't know if it's just social media in general. But like, and the example you used earlier was, tracking down the adult. It's like, really? There's a I don't know, kid maybe 10 years old he's trying to throw the ball to. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
dude. Like, I love the fact that he stopped and handled it correctly right there. I've actually really have enjoyed him over the last year or two. And again, just look at the crowds and the way that he has been received. I think a lot of people, not saying that they've all been like me, but I think they've really kind of I don't know if it's just maybe understood him a little bit more, but nonetheless, I mean, you can never knock him. I mean, the dude's I mean, it's unique, but the guy has game. I mean, and again, just we go back to the Tiger conversation. I mean, lit up Augusta. What does Augusta do? Start lengthening the golf course. Or tiger proofing, as they used to say right there. But no, I mean, obviously, he had a super strong showing the other day at the PGA. I don't know if it's necessarily going to happen here at Pinehurst. There are trees. Gosh knows, what was it? Was it 16 or 17 the other day? He got a very generous bounce back in the fairway right there to even just make it interesting. But nonetheless, there's definitely some, the waste bunkers down there, or native area, I think is what they call it, in the trees. I mean, definitely, if you spray one, you're definitely going to be penalized for it. So do I think he might necessarily have the game for this particular course? No, but nonetheless, I do think Liv is going to, come through that door eventually, whether it's, in a couple weeks or, maybe it's the Open or maybe it's sometime next year. But again, they've got horses there. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think with Bryson that the interesting thing, I think it's the redemption story, if you will. So when he came out with the hey, I'm going to add all this length, and then he runs his mouth at Augusta. Yeah, this should be a par 66, and I'm gonna shoot 61, and that's going to be my tournament. And then he shoots what 80, 81, 82, and just he and then but he's always owned it. He goes, yeah, this is what I think, and okay, yeah, Augusta whipped me, and I got to go back into it, and I think he's he has come down. I mean, he's lost a ton of bulk. He still can has the clubhead speed, but now he's not chasing 210 and 220 and this and that. So I think there's some redemption there. He was always a popular guy just because he was different. So I think that played in a role. And I think he was humbled, and we like the guys that we want our superstars to be humbled, and then we want them to come back, and he's done that. So I think that plays a role in it. As to Pinehurst, I put him in the top four going into this thing. I think I think that course sets up really well for the Bombers. I'll be curious to see what they do with the rough. Obviously, it'll be thick and high, but that's one. It reminds, and I forget where he won. He won the other U.S. Open. Was it Marion that he won it, or
I thought it wasn't Beth Page. It was, because that's where they're going next year. Was
it
it?
was the one in Pennsylvania? I forget what the course is.
Was it Pennsylvania? I just remember, what was it? Was it COVID?
He won at Wingfoot in 2020.
Wingfoot. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So,
I thought it was the other New York.
Yeah. So I think he's got the game to kind of bomb it through some of the trees and get over a lot of the trouble at Pinehurst. So I actually think he has a really good chance. I would make him one of the favorites coming into this week.
All right. Well, I like him. I'd love for Justin Thomas. He's one of my favorite golfers now. The Fowlers of the world. Patrick Cantley. I don't want him to ever win another tournament ever. Haven't heard much about him in the last 3 months. I don't want him to do anything. And his partner Xander, congratulations for him, but I don't want him to win the U.S. Open either. Obviously we'd all love to see T. Gray come back and win the U.S. Open, but that ship, I believe, is starting to sail, and I believe even Mike will agree with me on that. U.S. Open should be fun. Austin, pleasure having you on tonight. Little guest, special guest, talk some baseball, some hockey, and some golf. We appreciate it, and until next time, buddy.
Always a pleasure, boys. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Thanks, buddy. Go Stars.
Kyle, that leads us, we finished most of our sports coverage tonight. We do have some crunch time things that we want to get into. Situations like Pete Carroll against the Patriots years ago. What are some of your thoughts on crunch time and maybe a specific instance where you're just like, that is insane?
Honestly, I mean, having living in Charlottesville, having our local guy Chris Long here, he and his brother Kyle moved back. Obviously, mom and dad are still here, but having been part of the most famous Super Bowl, really just goes back to like the Dan Campbell thing. And I'm not saying that there was just one particular instance, but it just seemed like the famous hockey player and announcer and horse enthusiast Eddie Olczyk, when he talks about playoff hockey, he talks about you always have momentum and then you always lose momentum. And it's when you lose it, what do you do to get it back? And I feel like coaches sometimes have no perception whatsoever of when they lose momentum. And I feel like Dan Quinn in that particular instance, obviously having Kyle Shanahan as his coordinator, I mean, you would have thought that like at some point we've got to, just even if it's just a 3-and-out scenario, just try not to give, try to put the tourniquet on this bleeding, so to speak. Try not to make this any more worse for the wearer. So again, I feel like you've got coaches that sometimes it's just a matter of like, stay in your lane. If you're more of, I mean, like look at the Baltimore Ravens. Like how many times this past year they were very pass. Okay, you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who have had one of the top passing defenses, but one of the worst running defenses. And so, just why they, or maybe it was vice versa, but either way, it was just one of those things where it was like, why are you trying to change your identity? So, I think there's sometimes where, again, coaches just overthink. And then you've got moments like Mario Cristobal, who it's just like, dude, just take a knee. Like, there's no need to hand the ball off. Like, who cares? Now, granted, I will say in just my opinion, Cristobal's, I think a lot of that, and you and Mills can probably segue into this some other time, but college coaches, I mean, what do college coaches always do? They are constantly being funded by boosters. Therefore, when a booster comes up and says, "Hey, Turk, I need you to cover the spread this week," what is that going to all of a sudden do when you look at the clock and you're like, "Ooh, ooh, spread was 10 and we're up 7 and we're inside field goal range." They're going to go for it because guess what? Like I said, those boosters can slide them bigger contracts, might slide some money in their pocket while they're schmoozing, whatever the case may be. So not to kind of let Cristobal off the hook, but nonetheless, I think there are times where coaches again are just swayed, and again maybe the moment's just too big for them. But yeah, just I mean utter just I mean the Pete Carroll thing. I mean, especially with as many kids and adults that play Madden now, I mean, no one's going to think twice about, Russell on a keeper. It's just like, do what you need to do. I don't care if you have to hand it off 4 times from the 1 yard line. That's what you have to do. So I think sometimes just it's amazing that you would think that as prolific as these coaches are, that they would have the mindset, whether they have been in the moment as a coach or been in the moment as a player, that they would, try not to repeat things or try to prevent them from happening. But it really is alarming when some of these guys just do what they do right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing for me is you look at the 2 biggest blunders in the Super Bowl, which is the biggest. It's the biggest game. Everybody knows it. In all sports, the Super Bowl is what everybody watches in 156 different countries. Everybody watches the game, right? But both blunders, so the Atlanta Falcons versus the Patriots up 28-0, end up losing 31-28. They faced Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. In 2015, the Seattle Seahawks faced Tom Brady and the Patriots and Coach Belichick. You have one of the greatest running backs of that season in your backfield, and you decide to throw a slant pass, and it doesn't matter. Pete Carroll called the worst play of his career at the worst time, and that's a problem. On the flip side of that, and I know we're talking, crunch time, we're talking about coaches, but on the flip side of that, on that debacle, Russell Wilson has to be smart enough as a player to go, I don't know what Carroll smoked today. We ain't in Seattle, but I have to audible out of this play. You have to audible, hand the ball to 24, let him do his job, be done with the game, collect your next Super Bowl, end of story. One of the things
100% agree, but let me say this. And again, I know Russ grew up in the 804 like we did, but just the way that he has changed so much, Wilson, and again, let me just throw a scenario at you. If that was any other quarterback, do you think they would have had the presence of mind to have done what you just mentioned, which is, wait, did I hear that correct? Coach, did I hear that correctly? Like, did you really just call for a slant? Like, I think Russ, and again, not trying to knock him, but let's be honest, he's one of those guys where, did he throw it perfectly? No, but he's going to sit there and somehow, like, not have any wherewithal to say, like, damn, I should have been smarter to call a different play. He's going to be like, hey, coach told me to do this. And I'm just like, yeah, but you're on the 2 yard line, man. Like, so again, I almost wonder if you put another quarterback in that situation, I think they audible out. I think actually I just watched a YouTube short the other day that they had a camera on Matt Canada, the former Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator, and they had a split screen so you can see Canada right here and down on the field. Well, I don't know if it was Pickett or whoever the hell they had back there at quarterback at the time, but anyway, he calls an audible, and all of a sudden they go downtown and they hit the guy deep. They score a touchdown. Everyone in the booth, minus Canada, is going nuts. Everyone on the field is going nuts, and you're just like, again, that just goes to show, like, some of these coaches can't stay out of their way. Like, and sometimes you just, from a player's perspective, you never want to be, a bad, player for not listening to your coach. But at a monumental moment like that, where that would have been like a back-to-back for Seattle, I mean, to just not sometimes just be like, Coach, You know what? Pete Carroll would have forgiven him 2 seconds after that play. You know what I mean? Like if
Well, I
they
think
ran the
the
ball
biggest
and
thing is
Marshawn scores.
I think the biggest thing is, first of all, you're playing the Super Bowl, so the quarterback's obviously decent. We've maybe had in the last 10 years, we've had a couple Super Bowls. Maybe the quarterbacks haven't been great. You take the Eagles Super Bowl with Nick Foles; he's not a prime time quarterback. But I'm trusting my quarterback in that situation to audible out. Here's why they don't audible out. I think it has nothing to do with being complacent with listening to the coach. This is what coach said. I think it has everything to do with 3 seconds left in a basketball game, Michael Jordan, you're going to give him the ball. I don't care who else is on your team. Quarterbacks, coach said, ready to call to play with me to have the ball. I want the ball. The understanding, though, is, hey, you're at the one with Marshawn Lynch. You're at the one with Barry Sanders. You know, you've got options that are better than you can be. Maybe this isn't the best call. So in that regard, I think some of them might have audibled. We'll never know. I think Russell should have audibled there. Just real quick, this isn't what we're talking about, but agreeing with you there that the coaches can't get out of their own way. Matt, in Canada's defense there, we're not talking about Ben Roethlisberger audible out of play and making a touchdown. We're talking about a guy that's probably done this 3 or 4 times and 4 to 5 times throws a pick. So I understand that. Some of the Mario Cristobal stuff, though, is just even Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, there's no way that you can be up 28-0 and lose, right? Like get a stop, get a stop and move on. But it's what happened,
Right.
and I think that at the end of the day, it's just I don't really understand how it happened. I don't know that you can put too much on him. And I'm sorry, it's not Dan Campbell, it's Dan Quinn. My fault. But Dan
But
Quinn,
it is funny because obviously Dan Campbell has probably been our most recent, NFL
yes,
coach where, huge lead against San Francisco. And I love the fact that he owned up to it. And that's one thing you and I talked about is coaches owning up to it. And sometimes whether that is to cover up for the team's performance, maybe they just didn't have it, or maybe they really realized like I screwed our team. I do think that again, kind of having that pulse and again, sometimes it's just those are things you can't teach. Those are just things you feel, and that's actually the one thing I do admire about Dan Campbell is that like he's in his own zone and he's like, we're going to have to go for this. Now, granted, a couple of years ago, I would not have recommended going for it actually it was this past Thanksgiving. It was like,
yeah,
dude, you're already down like 14-0. Don't pull some fake BS punt like this. And they did, and they didn't get anywhere. And then guess what? It's like, even the announcers are like, oh, I'm pretty sure Green Bay is going to go deep on the next play. And it's like, they might not have gone deep, but within that drive, they scored another touchdown. So therefore, you're just like, oh my goodness, could we, let's try not to, shoot our own selves in the foot right there.
yeah. It's one of those things that you have to eat it, you have to own it. That's the biggest part. But a lot of times in football, it's just like in golf. The risk reward is so great. Sometimes we get caught up in that regular season games. When Dan Quinn was playing the Cowboys and went to it back-to-back times on 4th and goal, like, you got the penalty. Let's not do it again. Even though that was a whole debauchery there, 3 plays in a row. But at the end of the day, you make choices and you have to live with them. And I think his is going to come from experience. Michael, like this, the biggest thing that Dan Quinn has learned is the lights get brighter when you go to these championship games, when you start playing football. And things happen, and sometimes your mind leaves you a little bit. But as far as Campbell goes in Atlanta, he's with the Redskins now, getting his second stint as a head coach of the Commanders. But
Whoa!
28-0.
Commanders! I know
I'm
you just
sorry.
said it,
Excuse
but
me.
Um,
But I
but hey,
think
let me ask you.
Campbell. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
I think Campbell has learned from that experience, and it's going to be exciting to see what he does in Washington. really, it's going to be exciting to see what Dan Quinn does in Detroit. They should have the same team. Should move forward. Maybe even win the division. We'll just have to see what happens.
Campbell, not Quinn.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say maybe you should switch to the brown water instead. Well, hey, speaking of coaching blunders, I know we didn't really you and Mills don't touch too much on it, and I don't blame you. NBA, real quick, little nugget, and then I'll segue that into kind of what we're talking about. Did you know in the Minnesota Dallas, obviously Dallas was up 3-0. There have been 155 times a team has been down 0-3. You want to take a guess at how many teams have forced a game six? Just a game six. So
Four.
obviously,
Four.
Minnesota won game four. Um,
They will not win
11.
tonight. They're down
You'll-
36 at the break.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Which again,
But I'm going to say 4.
okay, close. Well, not close. 11. But out of the 11 that have made it to a game six, only 4 have forced a game seven. So I mean,
Gosh.
again, we talk about numbers and things like that. I mean, that is staggering to think. But then again, hell, last year you had Boston, Miami go 7, and Miami came out ahead. So it is pretty bizarre. It's funny that you mentioned that because, poor Minnesota. I mean, just again, Maddie B, Cleveland, my wife being Northern Ohio herself. I mean, you can't really touch Cleveland just with obviously the giant curse that is. But man, Minnesota, I mean, outside of the Kirby Puckett days, they can't buy a championship. Well, I take that back. I will congratulate the PWSL women of Minnesota for finally getting one done. It's pretty remarkable that they're not much different either. So, yeah, to think poor Minnesota, they, a couple of weeks ago they were up 2-0, won the first 2 games in Denver, go back home, lose the next 2 at home, or actually the next 3 games, both at home, and then they lose again in Denver, or lose again in Denver, win when they come back home, and then all of a sudden they're down 20 in Game 7. They come back. They have been an interesting team. I think truly the time, because I want to say they played like on a Sunday and they didn't play again. Like I think between Game 2 and Game 3 it was like they played Sunday or Monday and they didn't play again until Friday. Just very very strange how the NBA does this. Like obviously it looks like I'm. And granted, I know Silver will never do this, but we were talking earlier with Austin, regarding football and being king. I would love basketball to go ahead and start your season Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, one of the two. Do a handful of your marquee matchups on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, and start your season then. Because guess what? Come October, I know hockey starts. And people will tune in because obviously games are Monday through Sunday. But knowing that, if you're playing, Bettman's smart enough to know he's not going to carry but so many, games on Sunday because you're just wasting your time. Right, you're just wasting your time. I really think, and not knocking baseball, but again, we were just talking about, they're only 2 months in. If basketball was just now starting to close out their regular season and going into their playoffs, I mean they'd be carrying it for another 2 months. So, but what I wanted to ask you regarding coaches, what's your take on the NBA with fouling up 3? Because I mean you go back to we were talking about with the coaches, like with Carlisle. It's so crazy to think that they got swept, and yet they probably could have been up at least 2-0 in the series, or at least 2-1 in the series, but yet they got swept. And it's just little things, little decisions that just, again, whether it's players stepping up or coaches just maybe not making the right calls. I think what had transpired that the guy didn't inbound it, and all of a sudden it was a turnover, and then all of a sudden the dude hits a 3, and it's like, holy cow, our double-digit lead is now completely erased.
If you're up by 3, you got to foul. You can't allow them to take a chance. Now you run the risk of they're a good rebounding team, they're bigger than you, but you get a chance to substitute. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but you got to foul there because even if he misses the first one, doinks the second one, they rebound and get the two in. I mean, that's a 1 in a million chance. What's not a 1 in a million chance is giving a hot player a ball and saying, "Hey, make this three real quick with 3 seconds left." Where I think it's like hitting on 16. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it. If you're not, you're not. And hopefully
Right.
Carlisle figures it out. And from now on, he fouls them when they're up three, understanding that you know even if they were to get a shot off from 3 point land and you foul him, they still have to take the shots. Versus, and granted, a 3 pointer is not guaranteed, but in this day and age, the NBA, that's all they do.
Well,
They just,
especially in the NBA. Like, I mean, I
yeah,
scream, I scream to the, the Raptor. It's just like in college, it's a no-brainer, just foul. Like, I mean, how many
yeah,
times do you see kids go to the line and miss? Trust me, like you said, NBA, they're knocking them down more times than that from three. I don't care if you have a hand in their face or not, but send them to the stripe. Hey, whether it's a high percentage shooter or not, like good luck making three in a row, especially whether you're at home on the road, doesn't matter what the scenario is. I'm like you, send them to the line. But again, those are just some of these things where, again, whether it's analytics in football, analytics in baseball, just things like this have really, I don't want to say changed the game, but have really kind of given, I think, more fans something to think about and just almost kind of question their coach, like, are you really the right person for the job? Because it seems like in those crunch times when the lights do get brighter, um, they just it's like, where did their mind really drift off to? Because again, it just seems like it's little things. I mean, like telling your quarterback when you have a lead, hey, don't snap the ball at 12 seconds. Let that
yep,
thing run down to
yep,
2 or 3 seconds. Just little things like that where I think to me, obviously Belichick is the GOAT. But I think one of the reasons why is because he understands, whether like you were talking earlier, with baseball and kind of having that little, that mind, that little cat and mouse game. I think that's what Belichick does. But on the other side, I mean, he's literally playing chess, and these guys can barely even play checkers. But when you do bleed clocks down like that, when you tell your guys stay in bounds, like those little things, when all of a sudden you're just like, damn, we're already inside 2 minutes or whatever the case may be. It's like, well, they don't have enough time to go make two score. Just little things like that where, again, that's kind of that smarter, not harder mentality.
yeah. So, and you talk about Belichick and one of his former players, Vrabel, is another coach. They're both smart, know the rules in and out. Belichick's not the GOAT, that's Don Shula, but he runs a close second. But yeah, Vrabel, I mean, that's the thing is knowing the game, and I think all these coaches have to understand the game. I don't understand the Carlisle mentality of not fouling up three. It doesn't make sense to me. It's absolutely insane that he does that. But that's closing out crunch time, guys. We talked about the coaches, decisions made. One thing we want to get into, as you know, we are both of us have children. Mine are too grown for this, but Kyle's children are having field days, and just wanted to get, we both went to elementary school together. Kyle? What was your favorite field day event?
I'll be honest, it was funny. As I was putting the kids down tonight, I was asking my son, who is a second grader, and my daughter, who's in kindergarten. So they, like you said, they will both now be getting to experience this together. Asking him, I'm like, what do you all do? Just to kind of, again, kind of see. And the relay races were always fun. But kind of the sack race, and I definitely had like a proud dad moment because when my son was telling me like in the past he's done the sack race, I said, "Can I give you a little hint?" And he was like, "You can run in it, right?" And I said, "Yes, exactly, buddy. You don't have to hop. You can run." And he was like, "I already do that." I was like, "Good boy." And he was like, "They don't tell you have to jump." I was like, "Exactly, son. Like what does mommy always teach us? If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying."
That's
And
right.
so I think obviously the relay races were a lot of fun. But I did enjoy, a good sack race right there. How about yourself?
Yeah, so the one I remember the most is like the over under with the kickball, and you go over your head or under your legs, depending on where you were. The other one was the egg spoon. So you'd have the egg and the spoon, and you have to pass it back and forth from your teammates as you did the relay races or the relay there. But yeah, I just field day was fun. You get your little ribbon if you want an event. Collect all your ribbons at the end of the day, and it was good. The whole school was out there. Everybody was doing their thing. Um, we were very fortunate. They still allowed you to do all this stuff outside and compete and get ribbons and win, and you could be the champion. A lot of places now they don't necessarily keep score; they do things so the kids feel good. But over under was probably my favorite with the kickball, and really because you had to work together. It was all your students, all 20 to 28 of you, and it was over under as fast as you could go. It was crazy, man. It was one of
Uh,
those events. Miss those days.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, and don't forget too. I mean, as fun as those events were, and like you said, just the camaraderie of competing against other classes. Um, Man, I don't know if we were just spoiled or what, but I mean, just the concessions, the fair food right there. I
Yeah,
mean, just it always seemed like nothing tasted better than just homemade baked goods that were for sale and things like that. So it's very reminiscent, and like you said, I think they definitely have changed it these days. Mine definitely do not get ribbons, but I want to say that one of the cool things, kind of living just in a little, I wouldn't say burb, but like in a little town just outside of Charlottesville. The one cool thing is we actually have a volunteer firefighting crew, and they will actually come and they will actually turn the water hose up on the fire truck and will just spray everyone. So yeah, I think for being in a small school, it's pretty cute that they do some things like that, so that again they're kind of like, okay, we get to compete no matter if it's hot, cold, whatever, and then we get to all have fun in the water. So it's definitely different, like you said. It's hard to think that we are coming up on our 20-year high school or excuse me.
been a long time.
Yeah, I know, I know. It was funny. I was at physical therapy today, and there's a young lady. I say young, who had
Oh,
actually
now.
torn. Yeah, exactly. Tore her ACL as well, but anyway, had her surgery was about a month before, and we're kind of comparing notes because where she's what she's able to do and things like that, and my therapist came up and was like, oh, you guys trade notes, and it was like, yeah, but it's a little easier to talk to people when they're not 40 years age difference, and then she had just mentioned, she's like, well, I just graduated college, and I was like, oh gosh, there's almost 20 years difference in between you and I. It's like, oh man, we're getting old, but yeah, nonetheless, it's crazy to think that it was 20 years ago that we graduated from high school right there, and with Mills, Austin, I graduating 16 years ago from Marshall. You just kind of wonder where the time went, to say the least, but. Nonetheless, I know you were asking me earlier about the Rangers, and it's funny. I know you sent me a clip the other day talking about the comparisons between '94 and now, and what's really ironic. Obviously you had the OJ chase. Was in '94. He died this year. Speaking of the OJ thing, I don't know. Did you ever watch the 30 for 30 on the OJ?
I have not. No, I have not yet.
It's I mean, obviously I feel like almost, if not all, most of the 30 for 30s are fantastic, so kudos to you, ESPN. um
Yeah, they do a great
but
job.
what is so crazy with that is the fact that they literally, in the middle of the NBA championship, cut away because of OJ. Like, could you
Oh yeah.
imagine this day and age them cutting away from a championship? Like, I mean, granted, Austin and I, we jokingly say, well, if the Rangers and Stars would play, they would probably cut away. It would be like the cable guy. Lights would go out and nobody could get service, and you'd just be like, what the
Yeah.
hell just happened, kind of thing. But yeah, can you imagine that they would cut away? Um, from an NBA Finals game
Yeah.
I mean, just the amount of people that were glued to not only the chase but the trial. It just OJ was something, man.
He
But
was a big
nonetheless,
profile.
but just the parallels there. There was a solar eclipse in '94. There was one this year. Both have had earthquakes in the 2 years. You've got Messier's famous guarantee. which was Game 6. Ends up scoring a hat trick. Chris Kreider has a hat trick. They both were 33 years old when they both scored their hat tricks. And it was actually funny. I saw one the other day. Alex Winberg, the forward that the Rangers acquired right before the deadline, who scored the game winner in Game 3 against the Panthers. That was, I think it was his first goal as a Ranger, but I forget how the stat line read. But it was the first goal since being traded. But I think it was basically the comparison was his first playoff goal as being a member of the Rangers. The last Ranger that did that in a playoff was when Stefan Matteau, who was very famous for Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against New Jersey, scores. So it's just kind of weird how some of these things kind of compare right there. And then the last one that's very personal to me. I was 8 years old. My son just turned 8 a couple weeks ago. So, of course, that one's probably really just not going to happen. But nonetheless,
Right.
it was very interesting to be like, I've had to wait. I'll probably still be waiting over 30 years to watch him do it, and he might get it, within 8 years right here. So, just kind of funny some of the parallels, and I love whether we're talking this or just other teams and other sports. It's just so funny how you can tie some of these things together right there.
Oh yeah, it's funny the way the world works with that numbers and just things in general. It's definitely different. Kyle, appreciate you having it on tonight, coming on with us, doing the guest host with us on the show. Big Dog, appreciate you coming out, giving us some of your time there. Love it, man. Can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely, buddy. Like I said, sorry we got a little long in the tooth right there, but no, it was a blast being on. Appreciate you letting me step in right here. Thanks, Mills. Austin, was great to catch up, buddy, and have that segment together right there. Hey, other thing on betting right there, just for some of the novices out there. I know there are some talks about series prices and things like that. It has kind of been funny. The Rangers, are once again dogs, not only having home ice advantage. Again, they were dogs in the Carolina series. They're dogs again this year, or in this series. And actually, I think I just heard earlier today, if they played Edmonton, they'll be dogs, and I guarantee they'll be dogs if they play Dallas. But nonetheless, when you're looking at series prices in advance, one thing to kind of compare is especially when you're kind of looking at almost like a shorter series. So let's just, say for instance, if basketball or like in hockey, every series is, 2-2. If you look at the teams and series price, one thing you can do is compare what the series price is against what's called the rollover parlay. And a rollover parlay would be basically if you're going to take $100 and you're going to bet, minus 110 or plus 110 or plus 105 or something. Basically, if you take that and you bet basically it'd be game 5, and then do it again game 6 and do it again game 7, you can potentially have better closing line, or not closing line value. You could actually end up making more money on that rollover bet than you could potentially taking a series bet. So just something to kind of think about. Again, not every playoff or is going to kind of line itself like this, but just kind of something to think about. Just when you're thinking about your bets right there. Again, don't ever not advertising. Everyone just go out there and just start slinging hondos left and right, trying to to make it right there. But just as a general, tip right there for the viewing audience, just, kind of think about it. Cause I know sometimes people are just like, man, that just seems a little short. What's going on? Well, again, one way to kind of mitigate that would be to do the rollover parlay.
Okay. There it is, guys. Some more Talman tips for you. Get it out there, get the series early. You've got New York or Florida versus Dallas or Edmonton. Get them out there early, see what you like. Kyle is giving you some tips on the rollover parlay, just betting the game and then rolling it over the next game. Again, appreciate you coming on tonight. Another great show. Folks, we'll see you back next week. We are the Up and Running Pod. When you're up and running, we'll be right there with you. You can catch us on X at Up and Running Pod. You can catch me at BamaTurk46. Mike at M_squared. 11, and we will see you next week. Hope everybody has a good week. Hope your Rangers finish it out, Kyle. Looks like